Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Hey, deep divers. It feels like every day there's another headline about teens and screen time.
Yeah, you're telling me.
So we're going to tackle that today.
Absolutely.
You guys sent in some really interesting articles.
It did.
And we've got a study straight from the Journal of Adolescent Health and a great breakdown from MedicalXpress.
Yeah, so we're not just going to skim the surface here. We're going deep.
Exactly. We're going to figure out what this research actually says about how teens use their devices and, what it means for their mental health.
And it's not just like one of those, surveys where you ask teens general questions about their habits.
Right.
This study used data from the UK's Millennium Cohort Study.
Oh, wow.
Which has been tracking thousands of kids since they were born.
Really?
Around the year 2000.
So they've got years of data on these kids.
Exactly. They got tons of data.
That's amazing.
And for this particular analysis, they followed over 3,600 teenagers, checking in with them at age 14 and again at 17. And instead of just using, basic surveys, they had these teens keep really detailed time-use diaries.
Time-use diaries? What are we talking about here? Like, how detailed are these things?
Pretty much minute-by-minute accounts.
Wow.
Of how these teens spent their days.
Okay.
It's really valuable.
Yeah.
Because it let the researchers see, the difference between 3 hours spent playing video games versus 3 hours of online homework.
I see. So it's not just all screen time together. It's really breaking it down.
Exactly. Past research just kind of lumped it all together.
Yeah.
But this gives us a much more detailed look.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I'm already very intrigued.
So
So what did they find? What's the connection between specific types of sedentary behavior and mental health?
Well, they definitely found a link.
Okay.
The study looked at psychological distress, which is basically,
Yeah.
a range of negative feelings like
Yeah.
nervousness, hopelessness, worthlessness.
Right.
And they found that certain activities at age 14 were correlated with higher levels of this distress by age 17.
Okay, so not all sitting around is the same.
No, not at all.
So was there anything that really stood out to you? Like, what should we be paying attention to?
One of the biggest red flags was too much leisure screen time,
Okay.
especially video games.
Makes sense.
Teens who spent more than 3 hours a day on gaming.
3 hours. I have to admit, I was expecting them to find something at like a much lower amount of screen time.
Yeah.
Most parents I know would be worried about any 3 hours on a screen, no matter what their kid was doing.
Right.
Yeah,
But context is everything.
that's true.
And what's really interesting is that for each additional hour of gaming,
Uh-huh.
beyond that 3-hour mark,
Yeah.
there was a 3% increase in psychological distress.
So every hour over 3 is another 3%.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is significant. So
Yeah.
that really does make you think about what they're doing on the screen,
Right.
not just how long they're on it.
Exactly.
Okay, there was one finding I gotta say that really surprised me.
Yeah.
They found a link between increased psychological distress and, get this, spending more than 3 hours a day reading
Oh, yeah.
for pleasure.
A lot of people were scratching their heads about that one.
I mean, reading is supposed to be a good thing.
You would think.
Yeah. How did the researchers explain this?
Well, it is important to note that this was only true for a small group of teens.
Okay.
But there are a few possible explanations.
Okay.
One is that maybe the teens who spent a ton of time reading
Yeah.
weren't getting enough social interaction,
I see.
which is so important,
Right, especially for teens.
especially for teenagers.
Yeah,
So maybe they were, choosing books over time with friends,
right.
and that could lead to feeling lonely or isolated.
So even though they were doing something that seems good,
Right.
the fact that they weren't connecting with people,
Exactly.
that might have been the problem.
Yeah, it really highlights how important balance is.
Right. Even for the stuff we think of as good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And another thought is, even though it's called reading for leisure,
Right.
maybe some of these teens were reading on screens.
Oh, that's true.
Phones, tablets, e-readers.
Yeah. And we know that reading on a screen before bed can really mess with your sleep,
Especially with the blue light.
especially the blue light.
And sleep is so important for mental health.
Absolutely. It affects everything.
Mood concentration,
Yeah. Your ability to manage your emotions.
for sure.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's a lot of not so good news about screen time.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping there's some good news too.
Oh, there is.
Oh, good.
Don't worry. This research also found some positive things about screen time.
Okay, I'm very curious. What screen time is not linked to all this distress?
Well, moderate amounts of educational screen time
Okay.
were actually linked to less psychological distress in these teens.
Less.
Less.
Less. So you're saying that if my teen is in their room doing homework online,
Mm-hmm.
that could actually be a good thing.
It could be. Wow. Most parents I know would rather their kid was reading a book than doing schoolwork on a screen.
I know, it's funny, isn't it?
It really is.
It kind of challenges what we think we know,
Yeah,
but it suggests that it's not about the screen itself.
right.
It's about how they're using it,
That's how they're using it. Yeah.
engaging with educational content,
Yeah.
even if it's on a screen,
Mm-hmm.
might actually be good for mental health.
So maybe instead of just cutting back on screen time, we should be thinking about
Optimizing it.
optimizing it,
Yes.
focusing on quality over quantity.
Exactly.
This is making me really rethink some things,
Yeah,
like my own screen time habits.
Uh-huh.
But let's get practical here.
Okay.
What are some takeaways for our listeners? Like, how can they apply this to their own lives or, their kids' lives?
Well, one of the big ones is don't demonize all screen time.
Okay.
We need to move past this idea that screens are inherently bad.
It is easy to get caught up in those headlines.
Yeah, it's really easy.
But this research shows that it's really about healthy habits,
Yes, healthy screen habits.
not just getting rid of screens altogether.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that means having conversations with teens
Mm-hmm.
about how they're using their devices.
Right.
What are they watching?
Yeah.
What are they playing?
Uh-huh.
Are they connecting with friends in positive ways?
So instead of setting, time limits,
Right.
we should be focusing on that relationship with technology.
Absolutely, a healthy relationship.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else?
Another big one is the power of alternative activities.
Okay.
Things that get teens moving,
Okay.
connecting with others in person,
Right.
engaging different parts of their brains.
So like sports and hobbies,
Yes,
volunteering, hanging out with friends offline.
exactly. All the stuff that helps them build a sense of connection and purpose
Yeah.
outside the digital world.
Because even if they're not on a screen, spending hours on one thing, even reading,
Yeah.
could be an issue. It could be if it means they're isolated or not getting enough sleep.
So balance is important
Balance is key
across the board.
across the board.
But how do we actually do that? It's easy to say balance is important,
Yeah.
but how do we actually create environments that support that?
Well, it starts with us,
Okay.
the adults.
Yeah.
We need to model the behaviors
Okay.
we want to see in our teens.
So put down our own phones,
Exactly.
spend time together as a family without screens.
Uh-huh. Be more present.
Be more present.
Be more connected.
Yeah. Lead by example.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's not just about telling teens what to do.
Right.
It's about creating that culture of balance.
Yes. In our families and communities.
I like that.
Uh-huh.
And being more intentional with how we use technology.
Absolutely.
Not seeing screen time as the enemy,
Right.
but as a tool.
A tool for learning,
Mm-hmm.
creating, connecting.
Right. So things like encouraging them to use educational apps.
Yeah.
Or, join online communities that have to do with their interests. Exactly. Or even using video games to collaborate with friends on projects.
Yes. Technology can be really empowering.
I love that.
Yeah,
Okay, so we've got a lot to think about here.
we do.
But before we move on, I want to go back to one of the study's most surprising findings.
Which one?
The link between excessive leisure reading and psychological distress.
Oh, right. The one everyone was confused about.
Yeah, remember how some experts thought that maybe teens who were reading for hours on end were missing out on social interaction?
Yeah. Maybe they were spending more time with fictional characters than with real people.
Which leads me to a thought-provoking question.
Okay.
What if those teens were reading for leisure on their phones or tablets? Would that still be considered good sedentary behavior?
That's a really good question.
It really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes you wonder if it's not just about the activity itself,
Right.
but also about, how they're doing it.
Yeah, and maybe the study's really showing us that we need balance
Uh-huh.
in all activities,
Yeah.
not just digital ones.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's not about demonizing screens or even specific activities.
Right.
It's about a holistic approach to well-being.
Yeah.
Take into account everything.
All the different aspects of a teen's life.
Social connections,
Mhm.
physical activity,
Yeah.
their sleep.
Their creative pursuits
Yes.
and their relationship with technology.
That's it.
And on that note of holistic well-being,
Yeah.
we're going to take a quick break, but stick around. We'll be right back.
We'll be back with more on this fascinating topic.
Including some great resources you can check out.
And we'll answer some of your questions.
Don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
So what kind of screen time was actually a good thing?
Well, they found that moderate amounts of educational screen time
Okay.
were linked to less psychological distress.
So less distress, not more.
Less.
Are you serious? So if my kid's in their room doing homework online,
Mhm.
that's a good thing.
It might be. I know, right? It's kind of funny.
It really is.
It really makes you think.
Yeah, most parents I know would much rather their kid was reading a book than doing schoolwork on a screen.
Yeah. It goes against what a lot of people think.
It does.
But what this suggests is that it's not really about the screen itself.
Right.
It's more about how they're using it.
Okay, so how they're using
Yeah, like engaging with educational content, even if it's digital,
Uh-huh.
could actually be good for their mental health.
So it's not just about less screen time.
Yeah.
It's about better screen time.
Exactly.
We need to optimize it.
Optimize it, yes.
This study is really making me rethink my own screen time habits.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, but let's get practical for our listeners.
Okay.
What can people do with this information? Like, what are the key takeaways?
Well, one of the biggest things is don't demonize all screen time.
Okay.
You know, we need to move past this idea that screens are bad.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the fear-mongering headlines.
It really is.
But this study shows us that it's really about healthy habits.
Yes. Healthy screen habits.
Not just getting rid of screens completely.
Exactly.
So how do we do that?
Well, it starts with conversations
Okay.
with our teams
Uh-huh.
about how they're using their devices.
Right. So, like, what are they watching?
What are they playing?
Are they actually connecting with friends in a positive way?
Exactly.
So it's not about setting arbitrary time limits.
Right.
It's about fostering a healthier relationship.
Yes, a healthy relationship with technology.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay.
What else?
Another big takeaway is, the power of alternative activities.
Okay.
Things that get teens up and moving,
Okay.
connecting with others in person.
In real life.
Yes,
Yeah.
in real life, using different parts of their brains.
So things like sports and hobbies, volunteering,
Yes,
spending time with friends offline.
exactly. All that stuff that
Yep.
helps them feel connected and like they have a purpose
Yeah.
in the real world.
Right. Because even if a teen isn't glued to a screen, they could still be spending hours and hours on one thing. Even something like reading.
Yeah, and that could still be a problem.
If it leads to isolation or, cuts into their sleep.
Exactly.
So balance is important.
Balance is key
For everything.
for everything.
But that leads me to a question.
Okay.
Like, how do we actually do that? It's one thing to say balance is important,
Yeah.
but how do we actually make it happen?
Well, it starts with us,
Okay.
the adults in their lives.
Uh-huh.
We have to model the behavior
Okay.
that we want to see in our teens.
Well, put down our phones.
That
Do
goes-
stuff as a family without screens.
Yes. Be more present. Be more connected.
Be more present.
Yeah.
So lead by example, basically.
Lead by example, exactly.
Okay, so it's not about just telling teens what to do.
Right.
It's about creating that culture of balance.
Yes, in our families and our community.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I guess it's also about how we use technology, like not seeing screen time as the enemy,
Right.
but seeing it as a tool.
A tool for learning,
Mhm.
creating connection.
So like encouraging teens to use educational apps.
Yes.
Or join online communities that match their interests.
Exactly.
Or even using video games to work on projects with friends.
Exactly. Technology can be really empowering.
I love that.
Me too.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the not-so-good stuff about screen time. And some of the surprisingly good stuff. But I want to go back to one of the findings that really surprised me.
Which one?
The link between all that leisure reading
Oh, yeah.
and psychological distress.
The one everyone was confused about.
Yeah, remember how some experts thought that maybe those teens were missing out on social interaction?
Right? Maybe they were spending more time with fictional characters than real people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So here's a question for you.
Oh,
What if those teens were reading for fun, but they were doing it on their phones or tablets? Would that still be considered good sedentary behavior?
You know what? That's a really good question.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes you wonder if it's not just about the activity,
Right.
but also about the way they're doing it.
And maybe what this study is really telling us
Yeah.
is that we need balance in all activities, not just the digital ones.
I think that's a really good point.
Like maybe it's not about demonizing screens or even specific activities. Maybe it's about looking at the whole picture.
A holistic approach to well-being.
Exactly. Taking into account everything.
Everything.
Teens' social connections, physical activity, their sleep, creative pursuits,
Yes.
and their relationship with technology.
That's it.
Okay, so We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
But we want to make sure you guys have some resources to keep learning.
Absolutely.
So if you want to really geek out on this study, you can find the full citation in our show notes.
And if you want like a quicker summary,
right,
the MedicalXpress article is great.
Yeah, no scientific jargon.
Easy to read.
And now we're going to answer some questions from you guys.
Yeah, you guys sent in some great ones.
It's clear that this is something a lot of people are thinking about.
For sure.
So let's dive in. Our first question is from Sarah.
Okay.
A mom of 2 teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
She says her kids swear they focus better when they listen to music while they do homework.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that one before.
So is that true, or are they just trying to get away with having their earbuds in?
Well, this particular study didn't look at music and homework.
Oh, okay.
But there's actually a ton of research on background noise and concentration.
Yeah.
The results are kind of mixed.
Mixed how?
Well, some studies say music can actually help people focus.
Oh.
But others say it's a distraction.
So it depends.
Some research suggests that certain types of music,
okay,
like classical or instrumental music,
yeah,
can help some people focus. But if there are lyrics, that can be distracting, especially for tasks that involve language.
So, Sarah, it sounds like you might have to experiment a bit.
Yeah, try different types of music.
Maybe even some silence.
It's exactly. See what works best for your kids.
Okay, next question. This one's from David,
a
high school teacher.
Mm-hmm.
He asks how he can encourage his students to engage in more educational screen time.
Okay.
But without making it feel like a chore.
That's a great question.
It's all about finding that sweet spot, right?
Exactly.
Like, how do you make it fun?
Well, one way is to tap into their interests.
Okay.
Find online resources, documentaries, even interactive games that connect with what they're already passionate about.
Show them how they can use technology to really explore those passions.
Exactly. And don't forget about collaboration.
Okay.
Like group projects where students can use technology to connect research and create together.
Make it social.
Exactly.
Okay, last question.
All right.
This one comes from Lisa.
Okay.
A grandmother who's worried about her grandson's video game habits.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to know how to talk to him about cutting back.
Okay.
Without making him feel judged.
That's such an important question.
It can be tough to have those conversations.
It can, but they're really important.
So how do you approach it the right way?
Well, I think you start by acknowledging his passion for gaming.
Okay.
Show him that you respect his interests.
Uh-huh.
And then you can gently express your concerns
About?
the potential impact on other areas of his life.
So like sleep?
Yeah, sleep, schoolwork,
Yes.
his social life.
Make it about his well-being.
Exactly. Not about controlling him.
Okay.
And maybe try to involve him in finding solutions.
Okay.
Like ask him how he thinks he can find more balance.
Maybe he could set some limits for himself.
Exactly. Or choose some screen-free days.
Make him feel like he's part of the process.
Exactly. And Lisa, remember, you're not alone in this.
Right.
Lots of families are dealing with this.
Yeah.
There are tons of resources out there.
Like what?
Books, websites, even parent coaching programs.
So don't be afraid to reach out for help if you need it.
Exactly.
Well, deep divers, that brings us to the end of our deep dive.
Yeah.
To teen screen time and mental health. Hopefully you found it insightful.
Yeah.
And maybe even a little bit reassuring.
I hope so.
Remember, it's not about being afraid of screens.
Right.
It's about using them wisely.
Yes.
Finding that balance.
Finding that balance.
And prioritizing all those things that support well-being.
Exactly.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.
And those conversations flowing.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.
See ya.
Welcome back, deep divers. We've been talking all about teen screen time and mental health, and now we want to give you guys some resources.
Yeah, so you can keep learning about this stuff.
Exactly. So first things first, if you want to dive into all the nitty-gritty details of the study we talked about, you can find the full citation in the show notes for this episode.
And if you're looking for something a little more, digestible,
right,
the MedicalXpress article is a great summary.
Yeah, it's a good one. It explains everything in plain language.
Exactly. No scientific jargon to wade through.
But before we wrap things up, we wanted to answer some of the questions you guys sent in.
You guys sent some really good ones.
It's clear this is a topic a lot of people are thinking about.
Absolutely.
So let's get to it. Our first question is from Sarah.
Okay.
She's a mom of 2 teenagers, and she says her kids insist that they focus better when they listen to music while they're doing homework.
Oh, yeah. The old homework and music debate.
Right. So is it true? Or are they just trying to get away with having their earbuds in?
Well, this specific study didn't look at music and homework.
Okay.
But there's a lot of research out there on background noise and concentration.
What does it say?
It's kind of a mixed bag.
Mixed bag meaning?
Well, some studies show that music can help people focus.
Okay.
But others say it's a distraction.
Oh, so which is it?
It seems like it depends on a few things.
Like what?
Well, some research suggests that certain types of music,
Okay.
like classical or instrumental music,
Right.
might actually help some people focus.
Right.
But lyrics can be a distraction.
Especially for tasks that involve, reading or writing.
Exactly.
So, Sarah, it sounds like you might just have to experiment a little.
Yeah. Have your kids try different kinds of music.
Maybe even try some silence.
Exactly. See what works best for them.
Okay, next question.
Oh.
This one comes from David.
Okay.
He's a high school teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and he's wondering how he can encourage his students to do more educational stuff on screens,
Okay.
but without making it feel like a chore.
That's a great question.
It's all about finding that balance, right?
It is.
Like, how do you make it fun?
Well, I think one way is to connect it to their interests.
Okay.
Find online resources, documentaries, interactive games that relate to things they're already passionate about.
Show them how they can use technology to really dig deep into their interests.
Exactly.
And don't underestimate the power of collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe doing group projects where they can use technology to, connect and research and create together.
Exactly. Turn it into a social experience.
Awesome. Okay, last question. This one's from Lisa,
Okay.
a grandmother who's worried about her grandson's video game habits.
Uh-huh.
She wants to know how to talk to him about cutting back, but without making him feel like she's, judging him.
That's a tough one. But it's so important to have those conversations.
Right. So how do you approach it?
Well, I think you start by acknowledging his passion for gaming.
Oh.
Show him that you respect his interests.
Right.
And then gently express your concerns
Okay.
about how it might be impacting other parts of his life.
Like sleep.
Yeah, sleep, schoolwork, his social life.
Right. Make it about caring about him.
Exactly. Not about trying to control him.
Okay. And maybe even involve him in coming up with solutions.
Absolutely.
Like maybe he can set some time limits for himself.
Uh-huh. Or pick certain days to be completely screen-free.
The point is to make him feel like he's part of the decision.
Exactly. And Lisa, remember, you're not alone.
Right. A lot of families are dealing with this.
There are tons of resources out there. Books, websites, parent coaching programs.
So don't be afraid to reach out for help.
Don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well, Deep Divers, that's about all the time we have for today.
Yeah,
We hope you learned something new about teen screen time and mental health,
I hope so.
and maybe feel a little bit more empowered to navigate this complex world.
Absolutely.
Remember, it's not about fearing screens.
Right.
It's about using them wisely, finding that balance.
Finding that balance.
And prioritizing all those things that support well-being.
Exactly.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing and those conversations flowing.
We'll see you on our next deep dive.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To Do Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.